Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the three hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from three very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production podcast network. We hope to see you online.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Weird Way Media.
Welcome to Rankin and Bass, an offhand joke that became a podcast, and now we're stuck with it. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me is a little Siam boy, Siamese, is that okay to say? Thai, I guess. We change things a lot. Chris Stachiw.
Is anything okay to say at this point? Are we going to get ourselves canceled at this? This is the bridge too far, folks.
Also along for the ride is a man who is wearing yellow face for some reason, Mr. Richard Hatem.
Well, I'm happy to be here, etc., etc., etc.
Oh boy. On this podcast, we discuss the works of Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass. Usually we talk about their stop motion work, but man, we are stuck here in Animation Town. We went from the very earliest stuff all the way to some of the latter days here with a Rankin and Bass production of The King and I from 1999. It's half straightforward adaptation of the Rodgers and Hammerstein play, and it's half offensive, subpar Aladdin hijinks garbage that
Oh my God.
I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Holy cow.
Seeing is one thing. Hearing Darrell Hammond doing an Asian accent for an hour and a half is just the kiss of shit on top of a poo-poo sundae. Because, Richard, this might be the one time where I go, Richard was right. We should have taken this thing out into the woodshed and shot it in the head a long time ago.
Wait a second. No, wait a second. No, I can't believe I'm the one pumping the brakes and going, hang on, guys.
You're going to say you like this movie? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it.
Here's what I am going to say to explain Chris's remark. When we were preparing the episode, we were all watching the movie. I was looking for the name Jules Bass in the credits. So when you watch the movie, it comes up a Rankin/Bass production. So the name of Bass appears there. But if you look at the credits, he's not really credited as a producer. He's not credited as a, writer or whatever. So for a second there, I was like, well, wait, is this just something that Rankin did? Like, because it's so late also, it's 1999. So I thought, well, wait a second, maybe this doesn't, technically fall under our purview. I didn't run and get the book, so I don't know what it has to say. I was just sort of going by, internet information. So I jokingly sent a text saying, hey, should we even be covering this? And I right away, Chris said, yes, absolutely. So I was like, oh, okay. I guess he's really excited about it. And then I watched it in the mindset of, this is something that Chris loves and approves of.
I'm glad that that's where you were. I mean, that is the only way to watch a film where, again, Darrell Hammond is in audio yellow face the entire movie.
Well, that is true. Boy. Now, you said it's like rat droppings on a poo-poo Sunday. Whereas I would say there are certain bits of rat dropping on, I think, a yummy omelet of Rodgers and Hammerstein. Because when they're just doing Rodgers and Hammerstein, if you've ever seen a stage production of The King and I, or I don't know, there's got to be a movie, but I've seen it on stage. I'm familiar with it.
There's got to be a movie. Really?
And it's not this. Well, it's not this.
Bro, you do know there's a movie, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, shoot.
But not
there has to be one, right? This is a thing that was adapted, yes?
It had to be adapted. It's wonderful. It's charming. There's a lot of really great stuff, and the story is different. I mean, things happen differently. It ends up sort of the same. And we'll talk about those differences, which I think are fascinating. It is, as you said, shocking that in 1999, we've got a white actor. Forget that they had a white actor doing it. Asking an Asian actor to do this would be, in a weird way, twice as appalling. To do a character that is it is like textbook racist. The illustration looks like it was some sort of World War II anti-Japanese propaganda. You could not have a character more bucktooth, slant-eyed. I mean, it's shocking.
And then his teeth start falling out throughout the entire movie.
Yeah. I don't even care about the racism thing. It's the teeth thing, and the whole the bumbling and all this stuff. And it's just when they're doing the King and I stuff, that's great. Oh, this is so nice. We've got this whole story of the school teacher and her son. And as the credits are playing, the opening credits, I'm just like, how are they gonna screw this up? Are they gonna add an animated monkey or something to this thing? First shot. I get an animated monkey.
Well, and not only is it an animated monkey, then we get dragons and all kinds of fun fantasy elements that the original totally didn't have.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It was funny. I've seen only bits and pieces of the original to prepare myself for this, but I was talking with a friend of mine, and she's really into musical theater, and she doesn't like Rodgers and Hammerstein. And one of the reasons is all of their songs sound the same, which they kind of do. Richard's making a face for those of us that are in the audio medium, but also I asked her, because there's a scene where the king is singing in front of the statue, and it's him pleading, and it's a really emotional moment. And then there's fantasy bullshit in the background. And I went and looked at the way the scene is shot and done in the actual source material. And it's this movie is constantly at odds with itself, because it wants to tell the story of The King and I, a story that has endured for a long time because of that Yul Brynner movie. But then it's but none of that's going to be entertaining for 5-year-olds. So let's have some bullshit in the background for the kids while the adults are watching Diminishing Returns, a shortened version of The King and I, because this is an hour and a half barely. And the real musical is 3 hours with at least twice the amount of songs. I mean, I get that this is like a pared down, streamlined version, but there's so much just egregiously idiotic shit in this movie that almost completely comes from making this for kids. Like that's all the almost the entire problem with this is it's for kids. And it should have no reason or right to be.
Yeah, I don't think this is a musical. Well, frankly, there's not a lot. Where do I start? Rodgers and Hammerstein have written some of the best American musicals in existence. Their songs do all sound the same. Amazing. Your friend is out of their mind. I'm sure they really like Sondheim.
Whoa, Richard. Jesus Christ. What if this friend didn't exist?
What if Chris is actually doing one of those my friend says?
Yeah, that friend of mine was Mitch Cumstein.
Asking for a friend.
I'm asking for a friend. Do you really think that Rodgers and Hammerstein sounds all the same?
So I mean, I can argue that, but you realize I will start at a baseline of this is a great musical and go from there.
Sure.
But it immediately, off of what Chris says, it begs the question, well, why was this made? And it was made because in the 90s, Disney had great success doing animated musicals that appealed to the four quadrants. It was going to get, men and women and young people and middle-aged people and old people. So it's like it's not like, well, this is being aimed here. It's like it's being aimed at everyone and it's hitting with everyone. Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Aladdin. All of those were huge successes that meant other studios like Warner Brothers had to go, are we leaving money on the table, not trying to, make animated movies and do what they're doing? How hard could it be? They're using classic stories. And updating them. Lion King is basically using the structure of Hamlet. So isn't there some way for us to kind of do the same thing? It doesn't have to be totally original. We don't have to come up with, Superdog. We can just take something that exists, already has songs that people know. This is how a movie like this happens. But because it's King and I, let's put in there is a sorcerer, there is a bad guy, just like Shere Khan or like
Jafar and Aladdin.
Jafar and Aladdin. Who's the uncle? Who's Jeremy Irons in
Scar?
Thank you, Scar. Yeah, we need the bad guy. I mean, in a way, that's equally egregious. Actually, it's not. Nothing's more egregious than what's the guy, Little Master or whatever his name is.
Master Little.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, and now let's go. I mean, it really is shocking. It's like if you went and said, well, there'll be an African-American character, so let's make them a pickaninny out of the, turn of the century and just apply every possible physical stereotype you can think of. The only thing missing from this character was a ponytail.
He doesn't turn his R's into L's as much as I thought he would.
No.
Thank God, because that was the bridge they wouldn't cross.
I have an alternate theory, which is that this was an attempt to cash in on the live action version of Anna and the King, which is the non-musical version of The King and I. That was Anna Leolin's, I guess is how you pronounce her name. It was her book that The King and I was based on. And in 1999, Andy Tennant gave us the live action version, the one with Jodie Foster and Chow Yun-fat. And I'm wondering if this is just kind of one of those, like, we got to hurry up and come out with this thing. Because the next year, there would be an animated version of Anna and the King that was 60 minutes long. I don't know if they added songs to it or if that just automatically turns it into The King and I, like no songs. It's Anna and the King. Add a song, it becomes The King and I, no matter what song it is. I'm not sure what the rules are, but maybe that's just my conspiracy theory that you had two movies in the same year based on the same source material, one being Anna and the King and the other one being this bizarro King and I adaptation.
Rodgers and Hammerstein were known for adapting material. South Pacific is based on the stories of James Michener. Oklahoma comes from a book called How Green Was My Valley.
Which was also a movie.
Yeah, things that, Oklahoma source material, not as well known as the Michener stuff. Anna and the King, somewhat well known, but not, they're not doing The Wizard of Oz to call back to our last episode. They're trying to find source material that they can then sort of present to an audience, a Broadway audience, for the first time, and use it as a way to platform, another dozen or 20 songs written by Richard Rodgers and lyricked by Oscar Hammerstein. So I don't know. I've never seen a non-musical version of this. Have you guys? And does it hold up dramatically?
I haven't seen that Anna and the King. And I know that that's also been, I think Yul Brynner even did a version of Anna and the King for TV in 72, I want to say.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I would actually, I agree completely. Well, I agree with both of y'all, but I think obviously with things like Little Mermaid and Aladdin and Lion King, they're going to things that are not owned by anybody, because at this point they're literally in the public domain, right? Shakespeare's been in the public domain since we were all alive, essentially, since we've all been born, just like Hans Christian Andersen stuff. And instead they go, well, this has more, quote, curbside appeal than those do, because this is more well known to people that are around right now. Like you mentioned, Richard, I mean, Rodgers and Hammerstein is known by people in the 90s, maybe less now by a lot of people, but then the adults could get down with it and the kids would be like, oh, this is fun. And, this doesn't exist in a vacuum. I mean, I don't know if you guys looked around with the other movies that were coming out from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment at the time, but the movie we should be watching, Rover Dangerfield, is one of the movies that came out, which is Rodney Dangerfield as a fucking dog.
Hey, I don't get no treats.
Even when I'm on a leash, I get pulled. Oh, I mean, like what the fuck movie is that? But at least it's something original, right? This is from Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr. going, we want to do a Rodgers and Hammerstein thing. And it was the two of them convincing them to allow them to make this. But, it feels like you're just ripping off Disney and you don't have the writers.
For sure.
It does. And not only that, but it feels like you don't have the writers to land something that already exists. I mean, this is a story that already exists that people like, and they ruin that story. I mean, Quest for Camelot came out the year before this movie. I don't know if y'all have seen that movie. That movie's actually very good. It's a lot of fun. It has Eric Idle in it, has Don Rickles in it. It has Pierce Brosnan and Carrie Elwes. It's a lot of fun. This movie
is it based on Camelot?
It's not based on, it's based on like the stories of Camelot, but it's
not the musical.
It's not the musical. And it's about, the Excalibur gets stolen and they have to go get it. And Eric Idle and Don Rickles play a two-headed dragon and Gary Oldman is the bad guy. Like, it already sounds more interesting than this movie. And that movie is really good. It got nominated for Oscars for the music and everything. And then this movie comes out and it feels like that's exactly what they were trying to do, was capitalize on something that was adjacent to a musical. And now they're just like, let's just make a musical that exists already in film form. And it could have worked. It really didn't, though. Like, it could have worked. There's nothing to say it couldn't have.
Yeah, I think, obviously the attempt to age it down, because it's not a traditional love story. So it's not a musical in the sense, if you think about Hollywood musicals, a Hollywood musical is about two young people falling in love. And that's not really what this is.
Right, you kind of have that slid in on the side with the whole prince and servant girl thing.
Right. And in the musical, it's not even Chulalongkorn, if that's his name. God, I don't have it in front of me. But there's actually two characters. There's the king's son, the crown prince who will become the king. And then there's another character who falls in love with Tubtim. So, and I actually think that was one of the best ideas in this thing, was to combine those two. I'm like, that's actually really smart. So, Rodgers and Hammerstein would always do this. There would be the A love story and then a B love story. But anyway, that wasn't really enough to sort of say this is going to get little kids excited. You've got to have animals. The monkey you talked about, and elephants and stuff like that. So it really was unfortunate. And they had to go to the Rodgers and Hammerstein estate, who controls every production.
Right.
Like, they had
Bass and Rankin Jr. did together. Like that's where Jules Bass comes into this equation, is it was him and Rankin Jr. that went.
Yeah. And they said, well, okay, it's a little weird, but there may be money in it. If if fucking Lion King can do it, we can do it. I'm sure was part of that.
Right.
And
it had
then,
to have been, right?
And then also it's like, well, if if you basically tell the same story, but there's enough in there to get kids excited, there's a monkey or whatever. Okay, go for it. But boy, that was not a good idea.
Well, and on top of everything else, this is without a doubt one of the ugliest animated things I've ever seen. It's so poorly animated. It's just not pleasant to look at. It's not. Look, Quest for Camelot, I watched part of it yesterday just so I could remind myself that's a year before this. And there's just like, even from the opening shot where the kid is hanging on the side of the boat, the water is just, it all looks so muddied, and it's not very clearly defined in a way that something like this should. And what's kind of strange is the opening of this movie, and then there's kind of a dance scene later in the movie, are so well animated and interesting to look at and vibrant with their colors that it's like, what is the disconnect here? Again, there's a very huge disconnect between the things you expect from A King and I and then all the other stuff.
Well, it's funny because if you compare it to other things at the time, mostly Disney animation, it's not as good. If you compare it to other Rankin and Bass stuff, I've seen uglier.
Well, right. That's fair. Case in point, the last thing we watched.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to like the animation style a lot more than I did. And I mean, you're talking about how smart it was to combine different stories. And when they're not doing all the stuff with the wizard and Master Little and all that kind of stuff, the elephants, I mean, even the elephant was okay. But as long as they're not dealing with that whole evil wizard who's trying to become the king, I guess, but it just feels, I mean, it is what it is. It feels like it's just shoved on there. It's all stuck on. It's all just this top layer. And if you just peel that off, you'd be left with something somewhat decent, I would say.
Well, they had the original material, they had a problem. And then with this, we got to get kids involved. They had a potential solution. So I'm sure there was something attractive about, because in The King and I, there's that whole, we've got the emissary coming from Britain. It's her old boyfriend. Okay, great. That's perfect. In the play, rather in the musical, part of the sort of reception is there's going to be a sort of a little play put on based on Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Right. I was wondering if that was ever going to come into this movie that we're watching. Yeah.
It's like, wait, what? Okay, we're in Siam, and now they're going to take Uncle Tom's Cabin and do a play. So, but it works because it's echoing a theme of political systems where slavery exists, where people are, indentured servants. So it's like, we're sort of using the play to show how the king is brave enough to question a system and do a play about it. And somehow it'll reflect well on the king. And there's certain comic elements because a story that is endemic to one culture is being translated into another culture. And there's some things just aren't translating one to one, but it's, the point is made. And of course, it leads into the most horrifying. It's like Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals are really dark. They can get really dark. This one gets to the point of like, the king is going to whip someone to death. It's like, well, his Burmese slave who will either be I'm either going to whip her to death, or I'm going to send her back home where she'll be murdered.
Right.
What? But it's in the musical. And it's addressed in exactly the same way it's addressed in this movie, where she says, fine, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it in front of me. And by then they have enough of a relationship where he's seeing his own behavior through Anna's eyes and can't do it, which again, that's great. That's the theme of the play. And that's the theme of the musical is the lurching and, the fits and starts of lurching forward in a character's evolution, a country's evolution. Great. But they couldn't do that. It's like, we're not going to do Uncle Tom's Cabin in this animated movie. So what are we going to do? Well, cut all that part out, but we'll sort of add in a hot air balloon. And there you go.
So kids love. That's what I've heard. Kids these days love hot air balloons.
Yeah, that third act, we really get far astray of what the rest of the film was. I mean, they set up that hot air balloon early on. It was very, when we saw that Genghis Khan movie, it's very Desi Arnaz Jr. on the big kite, and you're just like, okay, the big kite's got to come in someplace. I don't think it does in that Genghis Khan film, but it does in this one with the balloon. So it's like, oh, all right. It comes into play a couple times. And
the fireworks. Clearly they knew, well, okay, and at a certain point, we have to have a big, exciting conclusion where people are being rescued and the king becomes a hero and all that stuff. So they did the best they could. Look, the one really unforgivable thing is Darrell Hammond.
At least it's hard to tell it's him. I mean, at least there's that.
Yeah.
And I say him, I guess he's a guy just taking a role. And I don't know. I was alive and I was a full-grown adult in 1999. And in my memory, it was not okay. It would not have been an awesome idea to go, oh, and then he'll just be the goofy Asian character with the teeth. Maybe I'm misremembering 1999.
We're already having problems with Aladdin at that point. Like, I remember, and that was 92. Like, haven't they edited that? So there's like lyrics from one of the songs that is missing because they talk about how bloodthirsty the Arabs are.
Well, as an Arab, I can attest to that.
Well, I know that.
Richard, I swear to God. From one Arab to another.
Let me just speak freely. We're a murderous, savage breed.
It's the Walt Disney way, folks.
Which is okay, but to celebrate that in song, sometimes it's like, it was where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face.
Right. Yeah.
Have they stopped doing that?
Richard, they have. Well, I don't know if in Siam they've stopped beating you with a whip to death. I would assume they have.
Well, I don't know. I do understand that it's still a theocracy and it's still a little sorry, it's not a theocracy, it's still a monarchy, and I think it's still a little touch and go as far as like you cannot make fun of the king or the royal family whatsoever.
I think if you don't stand up in the movie theater when they do the proclamation for the king at the beginning of the movie, you get in trouble, right? Yeah, that's real. That's Thailand, baby. That's Siam, I guess. Look, I think the other thing that you kind of mentioned, Richard, the other thing that's kind of unforgivable is you have actual stage actors doing the singing. I mean, Christiane Knoll, Martin Vidnovic is a Broadway actor. They do the 7 songs in the piece. That's the thing I'm kind of shocked by. The original musical has about 20 songs. This one has 7.
Right. The good ones.
I guess.
Almost all of the songs were recognizable to me. I mean,
getting to know you, right?
Getting to know you. Yes, exactly.
I'm surprised they left out the one that I always remember. The one, We Are Siamese.
Different musical.
Yeah.
There was a Siamese cat in this at one point.
Yeah. Siamese made me wonder, are they all Siamese cat if they're in Thailand?
Every cat is a Siamese cat.
Yeah.
So we just talk about Darrell Hammond as a comedian and as a voice. He does some pretty good impressions, right?
Yeah, I remember I liked he would do Clinton all the time, correct?
And Connery on Celebrity Jeopardy on SNL. He's the one who would always be Connery versus Will Ferrell's Trebek.
I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
He was the Bill Hader of his day.
Yeah, I didn't watch a lot of SNL when he was on there, but I do remember obviously the Celebrity Jeopardy skits quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't have a deep knowledge of Darrell Hammond. Do you, Chris? Was that your generation?
I mean, again, like I've seen him in things, but he for me is the guy who was on SNL for a while and then left, and he's on SNL still. Like,
is he?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
No, Darrell Hammond is not still on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Somebody got to look this up right now.
Go on Wikipedia. Go and watch. He shows up on SNL from time to time, dude. Like,
well, from time to time. Okay, maybe he shows up as a guest or something, but he's not part of no.
maybe not as at the opening, but he does show up. I mean, who else is showing up that frequently that wasn't on the show before? You know what I mean?
Martin
says he was all the way up to 2021. He was still a regular cast member. So he was in it from season 21. Didn't make every season, but then up to 46.
Told you.
Freaking crazy.
Told you.
What is? Wait a second.
He's just doing impersonations. Like he's doing impersonations for them.
Is he the longest regular cast member?
He has 308.
Like
Is it 308
years?
episodes? Yeah, 308 episodes to his credit.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I stand corrected and I stand horrified.
I know, right?
Again, like I honestly don't even know what Darrell Hammond's thing is other than being the dude who did impersonations on SNL. Like that's when I think of Darrell Hammond, that's who I think of, is the guy who was on SNL doing impersonations.
And when I think of Darrell Hammond, I think of an interview with him. I don't even know where it was on, NPR or something, where he was talking about how he did, because like he's like a scientist when it comes to these impressions. And apparently he can tell when someone has had surgery. Like he can sort of hear. He's like, I can look at someone's face and listen to their voice, and if something's not matching up, it's usually because they've had rhinoplasty or some kind of surgery, their tonsils or something. Something's been done, maybe their teeth, where it's literally affecting the physical structure of their larynx and their nasopharynx, and sounds are coming out in ways that are unexpected. And then I have to account for that as I do an impression of them. And I was like, okay, Rich Little never said that.
Huh.
Darrell Hammond is the narrator for SNL now, folks. That's what it is. And he shows up in episodes doing 2014, Richard. What would have happened in 2014? Donald Trump. That's what he did before Baldwin took over, was he was doing the whole Trump impersonation thing.
When you say he narrates, he's doing he's announcing the
Saturday
cast?
Night Live. Yeah.
Okay. So
he does show up from time to time.
From that, but he's doing Don Pardo.
But who else? But Don Pardo didn't show up in front of the camera.
I can't speak for Don Pardo. Okay, let's let the man rest in peace.
I think more to our points. When I think of Darrell Hammond, I don't think of him in front of the camera, even like in front of the camera in movies. It's TV on sketch comedy doing impersonations. So it makes sense that they would have him doing this. I don't think it's okay, but it makes sense why he's doing this. But yeah, it's the worst part of this movie. It's so bad and offensive that it almost it makes the movie unwatchable anytime it's on screen.
Yeah, and it didn't. They did not have to do that. They could have had a dumb, lackey, goofy, the sort of
talking animal.
Well, it's the henchman who doesn't scare us. It's the lovable, dumb henchman who gets slapped around by the evil henchman. I get that. That exists in a lot of Disney things. And
like MODOK?
What?
Like MODOK from
Who's MODOK?
New Ant-Man film, where he starts off as a bad guy and they say, hey, don't be a dick. And then suddenly he becomes a good guy. I was waiting for somebody to say that to Master Little and then him just be like a super nice guy. And then they get him dentures at the end.
Well, he has no teeth by the end of the movie. That's what happens when you're a bad guy. Okay.
Exactly.
But you could have that goofy character without making them. It's like, okay, and let's just go full stereotype. You just do the character, but not by employing every ethnic stereotype that exists in American history in regard to Asian people. I mean, for fuck's sake.
And again, that's why I mentioned Talking Animal, because in not Rasputin, but in Anastasia, another not Disney animated movie, because that was a Fox animated movie that came out in 97. It's Hank Azaria playing a albino bat. So like,
and we all know Hank Azaria has never done an accent that's upset any racial group within American culture.
Definitely not.
Right. I mean, hey, you know what? I'm not speaking for anybody about Hank Azaria, but Apu was a fully formed fucking character at this point, guys. Like, it's not Master Little, the most offensive animated character I've seen in a movie, close enough that I could say people are still alive and can watch it. Like, this isn't Song of the South, for fuck's sake. Like this, like you said, Richard, this is so contemporary. The contemporary nature of it, I think, is what's the most shocking, frankly.
Well, there was a big I was racking my brain for controversies of this sort. Like I never heard. I mean, as far as I know, there was no controversy. Not enough people saw it to provide controversy.
that's the big shovel of dirt right on top.
Yeah.
Nobody saw it anyways.
But what I do recall is Jonathan Pryce starring in Miss Saigon on stage.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Right around the same time, I think it was late 90s, and he was playing an Asian character, and there was then you heard about the controversy where people were like, why is this role not being played by an Asian stage musical actor, of which there are many?
Yeah, like
and
Joel
it's
Grey.
like, yeah, but are the argument back, well, yeah, but are they as famous as Jonathan Pryce? And it's like, well, that's beside the point.
You can never get as famous as Jonathan Pryce if you don't get a break and actually get to be on Broadway. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, then go do that. Get that person and allow them to become as famous as Jonathan Pryce by doing that role. So there was like, and it was also right around that time that David Henry Hwang did his update on Flower Drum Song, which was a musical that had sort of fallen out of favor. And he said, I want to restage it. I want permission to rewrite it and sort of recontextualize it. And as an, Asian American, sort of give it a new spin. And so there was a new production, and it played in New York and LA. And I don't think it was a massive hit, but it sort of was the other story you heard alongside the Miss Saigon story in terms of, hey, what are opportunities being given to Asian people? And are we so focused on the way we've treated, the horrible way American institutions have treated African Americans, that we've suddenly got a blind spot to, wait a second, there's other groups that have been equally maligned and not given opportunity. So that's what was going on in the late 90s, just from my own memory. Now this comes along. What the hell?
Well, I want to say the year before was Lethal Weapon 4, which was one of the most egregious anti-Asian films that I can possibly remember, where you had that, what was his name, Uncle Benny character, where it like they honestly had a fried lice you plick joke in the movie. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah. But again, it's like long after people would be triggered, as it were, by like, oh no, you cannot have an African American, you cannot make, a lot, whatever the jokes are going to be, whatever the classic stereotypes, the offensive, it'll be, watermelons or whatever. It's like people's radar was up on that, but apparently the Asian stuff, the fried rice jokes could just go right under the radar, and no one was going to say a word.
Do you know what I'm still so glad about is that it is still open season on Italian. So you can do that cheesy Italian accent whenever you want, just that Mamma Mia and it's so great. I love it.
There you go. Because every racial group has a song. It's like if it's an Asian character, right? And
racism comes in all colors, folks.
And then you cut to England.
That triggers the shit out of them, doesn't it? We got him now. Oh my God. Look, Anastasia, the movie, is based off of a stage play too, that animated movie. And it's like, why not just follow that mold? Why not give the elephant the talking lines? Why not give the monkey talking lines? Why not just not be, see, here's the thing, either don't be as faithful or just make it its own thing completely and throw out Rodgers and Hammerstein everything. But if you're going to do that, why adapt them to begin with? Like,
right.
It's so strange because Fox was doing it better with something like, look, Anastasia is something that got a stage adaptation because of the musical movie animated film from the 90s, like a couple years ago. People are still talking about that. That's still something that people actively like. This could have been that. It really could have. There's very little stopping this movie. I mean, other than, blatant racism, Mickey Rooney style.
When you control the estate of Rodgers and Hammerstein. I was going to say, an artist who has a deep catalog where the principles are dead, and now it's just a matter of, well, how are we monetizing this? There are times when the board just decides, hey, it's been a slow 10 years. We need to hire a publicist and an agent to go to Hollywood and remind everyone Rodgers and Hammerstein exist, and we are open for business. Okay. So pitch us your ideas because we need some money. Now, I don't know if that's what happened, but that is what can happen. And that may have been this. That may have been, hey, a couple things happened all at once. We need an animated musical. Rodgers and Hammerstein's ready to deal. We've got, Rankin and Bass have got a shop set up. We could do this fairly quickly. It ain't going to take us 5 years. And music, we don't need Elton John either. We got the music. Music was written 50 years ago. We're good. And maybe that's what happened.
And I think that was the mistake was, I mean, again, like Anastasia worked, so maybe not, but I don't know. Like it feels like if I'm sitting there in 1995 looking at the climate and the way things are, I would be much more entertained, at least myself, by going out and being with the entertainers of the time and working with them, like an Elton John. At this point, we're talking like a Celine Dion, like someone who is contemporary enough, but has that feeling of a Rodgers and Hammerstein. Because, like the music in The Lion King, it has that timeless quality to it. The way Rodgers and Hammerstein stuff does. It's not a surprise that the Disney music in so many of these movies sound like Rodgers and Hammerstein, because that's clearly what they were inspired by, because they were the ones, especially with something like Cinderella, they did it before Disney did in a musical format. So like those things that even the Disney things that are successful that they're kind of basing this movie off of, they can't even emulate the thing that's they're emulating. It's shocking how poor this movie is on both accounts.
Well, which is strange because then at the end of the movie, they have Barbara Streisand. Barbara Streisand is singing the end credits to the movie. She's singing 3 songs, and she is credited.
This movie that we just watched.
In the movie we just watched, because there's a vocal performance over the final credits, and I'm like, that really sounds like Barbara Streisand, and I don't know why, because she's not a vocal talent in the body of the film. And so I'm watching the credits, and it's like, oh yeah, this sort of medley of these 3 songs performed by Barbara Streisand.
What the hell? I didn't even catch that at all.
You see that? And I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm
I have dreamed we kiss in a shadow and something wonderful. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, well, wait a second. Was that like an original recording? Did they bring her in to do that? Or was that something she'd already done and they just licensed it? But it's like, okay, we get Barbara, but only for end credits or something. It's like weird, but it was really strange to see her there. I don't know if they were pushing that. I mean, it almost feels like if we do that, we're going to sell. Because again, remember, it's late 90s. CDs. And if you can sell CDs based on your movie, like the soundtrack, my God, can you imagine the amount of money that was made on the Lion King soundtrack?
Well, that was the thing I was looking at with this movie. The soundtrack wasn't poorly received. As poorly received as the movie was, the soundtrack wasn't as poorly received. Because again, Christiane Knoll is one of the voices on there, and she was a known musical and stage actress. Like, she's not phoning it in, because why would she? And Martin Vidnovic is also a stage actor and in Broadway. So I don't get it.
Now, again, I guess we have to circle back and say that Martin Vidnovic is not a Thai actor.
No.
So,
well, neither was Yul Brynner.
Neither is Daniel Day Kim or so many of the actors who have played the fictional king of Siam.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because when you get to certain Asian roles, even that gets it's sort of like, well, okay, so this character is Korean, but we'll have a Chinese play.
Well, like all the people in the geisha. What was it? My Geisha?
Memoirs of a Geisha.
Yeah, it was like all Chinese people, not Japanese people.
Right, and then of course our buddy from Barney Miller, Jack Sue.
Yeah.
Who was Chinese? No, I'm sorry, Japanese American who then performed as a Chinese American as a workaround from anti-Japanese blacklisting and racism during World War II. So it's sort of like, and now I think we are in an era where if it is a Korean character, let's find a Korean actor. If it is a Vietnamese character, let's find a Vietnamese actor. Don't just grab the first Asian person you see on the street. Let's actually see if we can do that. And you're so right, Mike, because it always comes back down to, well, okay, but you've just reduced your casting pool dramatically. And it's like, yeah, for now. But if stories about Korean Americans are being written and Vietnamese Americans and Japanese Americans and Chinese Americans, and then actors from those cultures actually play those roles, guess what? In 20 years, it ain't gonna be hard at all.
Right. I mean, I even use a even more contemporary example. The Last of Us cast a African-American child actor who was deaf. They put out an open call on Twitter and they got 5 responses. 5.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
But to your point, that episode worked well. That child actor who is deaf in real life was amazing in the episode. So my hope is those kinds of roles start to exist more and people start to write exactly like you said.
Well, and when on Titans, when we cast Barbara Gordon, who in our timeline of our story was already injured by the Joker and was on a wheelchair, we instantly realized we cannot hire an actor and just have them sit in a wheelchair. It's like, let's cast someone who is on a wheelchair, because that is the preferred phrase to use, not in, but on a chair. Yeah. Which is something I learned, because not only did we hire an actress, Savannah Welch, who was amazing and played Barbara Gordon and was great, but we also had a kind of like a technical advisor sort of talking about, okay, so I'm going to work with Savannah, but also work with you guys about how characters within the drama should speak, react, what's realistic to do, what isn't, how to approach certain things and questions and all that kind of stuff, which was great and very educational for us. But you gotta believe we did not have a large pool of people to choose from once we said, okay, this is going to be a white woman on a chair. We didn't have 200 people.
Right. But hey, Darrell Hammond was the best choice here, I think.
I think
they had people banging down the door for this role. I just don't understand why it wasn't a talking animal character, because that's literally the direction you go with these kinds of things. There's thinking of Disney movies with human characters, they often have a talking animal sidekick. Ursula, 2 talking eels. Robin Hood, those are talking animals, but I guess Scar has not Iago. What's the other one? No, Jafar has Iago, played by Gilbert Gottfried.
Right.
Well, but Chris, what are you saying? You want like there to be a panda bear who talks in pigeon?
I don't want what we got here. I mean, could anything? I mean, look. Let me put it this way: if it's a talking, okay, Eddie Murphy as Mushu in Mulan.
There you go. Well,
I mean that breaks everything completely, because he's not an Asian actor. Clearly, he's not doing an Asian accent. Clearly, he's
thank goodness.
Right.
Well, then it's just a character.
Right. And that's my point. It doesn't have why make Master Little this? Why not just make him a character as opposed to a literal roaming stereotype of the worst kind?
Well, you bring up a really interesting point, because then the animal aspect of it can become problematic and has been called out. Why would you use a particular animal to represent a person from a particular race? And I bet there were people who were pissed off that Eddie Murphy was a donkey. I bet there were people who were like, hang on, that feels a little not so respectful. I bet there were people.
Yeah. But have they seen this movie? Has anybody seen this movie? Did you guys see the response to this movie?
Budget of 25 million, box office of 12 million.
when the Rodgers and Hammerstein's dictionary about all of the adaptations of their works and everything go, this is the worst adaptation of The King and I. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I've already said I love Rodgers and Hammerstein, but they said it was okay to do this. So in a way, they have only themselves to blame.
Correct.
I'm sure it was like, well, tried that, never doing that again.
Literally, in 2009, the president of the organization, the Rodgers and Hammerstein organization, said this was the biggest mistake, was lending them the rights to do this, and that they would never do it again. Never another musical. And you know what? Fine. But at the same time, like, you know what? Yeah, because people kind of don't care anymore, because now Wicked is a classic musical. And that's a classic now. And that's being turned into a movie. And Rodgers and Hammerstein were perfect for a time and of a place. And we are not at that time and place anymore. And even musicals don't sound like this anymore. The biggest musical right now, or at least for the last couple of years, was Hamilton, which is hip hop, for fuck's sake. It's not these big, grandiose 32-piece orchestral pieces. And that's what musicals felt like they had to be for a very long time. And they don't anymore.
Right. I mean, looked at another way, doing The King and I suddenly gives Thai actors a field day with a variety of roles to play, both male and female. And if you do it, if you cast accurately, you can give a lot of opportunity, which is awesome. The Rodgers and Hammerstein estate does have certain hard and fast rules about racism. The most famous being that there is a song in South Pacific called You've Got to Be Carefully Taught. And it's about racism. It's about how racism has to be taught. It's like, look, the people you see out there who are racist, that didn't happen by mistake. They were taught to be racist. So it's sort of it's not sarcastic. It's a very sincere song, but it's like you have to be carefully taught to be that way. If you're going to end up that way, you grow up in that culture. Their rule is there can be no production of South Pacific that eliminates that song. That song must be performed in every production, because they realized that when they did the show, they couldn't do it in a lot of southern states, because at the time they did it, a lot of states in the United States of America took that as a direct attack against their culture. They were correct. It was an attack, and they lost money, but they said, it's part of the story. It's an important part of the story. It's something we believe. It stays in, and it will always stay in. And if you don't want to do the song, then don't do our show.
I wonder what the song was in this movie. They couldn't. Getting to Know You. Is that what it is? Is that the song that they have to leave in?
It is a puzzlement.
Honestly, like that's for me the biggest thing here. Just I wish it had just been for kids. If it had just been for kids, I think it would have been perfectly fine. I think if they had just said, "All right,
Rodgers and Hammerstein to be racist with kids,"
that is not what I'm saying, sir. But thank you for that gotcha moment provided by Richard Hatem. This moment in gotcha history. No.
Wow, Chris. Wow. You know what? Now I see you in a whole new light.
Yeah. I'm more speaking to the idea of, and we kind of touched on it earlier, why does The Lion King work? Because it uses Hamlet as a starting point, not the destination. And because you use that as the starting point, your jumping off point, it means you're not tied to the expectations and all of the trappings that come with saying we're doing a King and I animated film. There are you just said with South Pacific, if you were doing South Pacific an animated movie, you can't not do that song. There's nothing you could do about it. With The King and I, when you say we're doing The King and I, there are some things that have to show up. Otherwise, what are you doing a King and I adaptation for? If you don't do Getting to Know You and I would assume a Puzzlement and the other,
Shall We Dance?
Shall We Dance? Mm-hmm. Right. Like those three songs, those are the songs you're going to do if you're doing The King and I. But like, I feel like they should have just gone, well, let's use The King and I as a starting point, but we don't have to hew 100% as close to it as like telling the story beat for beat. And they did make changes, like you said, Richard, but they didn't make enough changes.
Well, what's interesting is that, again, not a traditional love story. The way the musical plays out is that Shall We Dance takes place sort of in the middle of the show before the big banquet. And it's sort of them growing very close together. And then they split apart when when it looks as if he is going to whip this person. And And then at that point in the story, even though he declines to whip Tubtim to death, they both sort of look at each other, sort of like in the wake of that horrible moment, and they both say, this was a mistake. My coming here was a mistake. And he was like, yes, your coming here was a mistake. And then in the timeline of the story on stage, she goes to the house outside the palace, and they do not speak for 3 months. They do not speak again until it is clear that he is dying. She goes to be with him as he dies, and it's as he is dying, and they find sort of an analogous moment here in the animated version. In the show, he really is dying, and he is turning over his reign to his son, and it's clear that he is saying to his son, you have my permission, and I am urging you, do things differently. I could not bring us into the future. You must. And that future must be one that is represented in the ideals of this woman, her ideals of equality, education, And so that moment comes, and he dies, and she leaves, and that's the end of the musical. But it's this sort of, they have realigned in terms of their friendship and their philosophy to whatever degree they can. A more romantic version of that occurs in this version, where at the end they do Shall We Dance? And he has been completely heroic and completely transformed. And then they dance, and it's the end. So it's, in a way, it's kind of nice if you're telling a less nuanced, less complicated story.
Right.
That part. So that has nothing to do with Asian stereotypes and weird evil wizards.
Yeah, because that's all for that, I think, is the real strange thing. It's like the stuff that's for kids is the offensive stuff.
Yeah.
And like, again, like we always joke about like kids entertainment, and like the best kids entertainment, at least in my opinion, is one where the adult can sit down and enjoy it, like Shrek, right? I mean, Shrek is a kid's movie, theoretically. I think it's got a lot more going on, which is why it does work. But you can't just say Rodgers and Hammerstein, that's going to get the adults in the door, but that's what this feels like. Like, oh yeah. And changing the story, I think it's, like you said, it's a very romantic, very family appropriate version of the story, right? Nobody dies. Everybody has a good time. The guy who totally tried to usurp the throne is just now with the animated movie logic, he just scrubs the stables as opposed to, being decapitated. Like what really happened to him?
The king with his backward notions really does transform into a modern thinker and a modern character. And there is it's a romantic ending.
Right. Yeah. And it's a very sweet ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Beauty and the Beast. I mean, literally is. I mean, they're dancing in a ballroom.
Yeah.
He's the brute. She's the beauty. They're cribbing from a lot of things here in terms of what they're hoping the end result will be.
I do wonder if they had done a animated version of this, like say now, right? Say you approach this now, because again, given the distance and time and the expectations of the audience now, if you were to adapt this now as an animated feature, you would not do it this way at all, obviously.
No,
but you
just do it for adults.
But you
the play.
Right, but you would do it this way because they halfway did it this way. You would do it this way. You would just not do all the other bullshit that they slapped on top. Because again, for the parts that's trying to be faithful to the musical with the music, it still is okay. That scene of him performing a puzzlement's not bad. That's the scene that I keep coming back to because it's such a stark contrast of like the panther is dancing around trying to stop him from being attacked by these robot statues, but he's just singing, doing the song. It's literally the way it would be presented any other time. And that's the scene where if you're sitting and watching this movie, you go, okay, here is the clear disconnect between the expectations of one audience and the expectations of another, and how they are trying to be matched and met in the same scene. And that never works. And here is just one more example of how it doesn't.
And unless you really know what that scene's about, I mean, it's so distracting. You think it's a scene about a guy sort of foolishly talking to himself while being unaware that he's in imminent danger. But there's a whole other character thing going on that you can really get kind of sidelined and you can miss it, which is a character struggling internally with the notion of, have always been told that everything I do and say is correct simply because I do or say it. This person who I respect and kind of like tells me that's wrong. What do I do? I mean, that's a fairly sophisticated place to be in a theater. And when you're singing about it, I mean, it's interesting. And it's not about statues coming to life.
Right.
Yeah.
It's such
And
a
that
strange
animation
disconnect.
style is so bizarre.
Yes. Well, and again, like even then, like you have them checking back in with this other sorcerer who is on screen with the king once maybe, if that. Like it even feels like the framing narrative of this story feels so like two stories running at the same time, and it's just
well, okay. Not only that, but I mean, forgive me for even saying it because this is not the biggest problem. But when you have an evil wizard, can't he just make it so that he gets to be king?
Yeah.
He can make statues come to life. Can't he just kill a few people and do a few things through magic and then it's done? If that's what he really wants, whatever.
all he has to whistling is his weakness. Okay. Whistle a happy tune and the giant water dragon goes away.
Before we wrap, can I give a shout out to a book everyone should read?
Sure.
The biography of Mary Rodgers, Richard Rodgers' daughter, Shy, the alarmingly outspoken memoir of Mary Rodgers. This is great. It just came out. It is wildly entertaining. Her voice comes through and she is an amazing person. She went on to have a career in theater also a little bit. She did two interesting things. She wrote Once Upon a Mattress, which you've probably heard of, which gets performed a lot. Rather a musical made famous because it was the debut of a unknown actor, singer, comedian named Carol Burnett, who made Once Upon a Mattress famous. And then this woman wrote the book Freaky Friday.
Oh, I had no idea.
So she's had a really interesting life. So if anyone is listening to this show because they're a big Rodgers and Hammerstein person, read this book. Ton of Rodgers and Hammerstein stuff, plus stuff you've never heard. And she pulls no punches and drags her mom and dad for sure.
And this movie does a pretty good job of dragging her dad's legacy on its own. So
yeah,
you know,
it's true.
And you know what? I think to your point, Richard, to bring this episode towards its inevitable crashing conclusion, this doesn't feel like Rankin and Bass.
No snowmen.
No.
If this had been
Ranger.
Rankin and Bass, I would have expected more from them.
Yeah,
I would have expected Maury Laws to be doing all the songs.
Jingle, jingle, jingle. I'm the king of Siam.
Maury, we need a few extra songs in this Rodgers and Hammerstein thing. Can you just write a couple classic songs? You have 2 weeks. We just need like 3.
Just fire it off.
For whatever reason, I thought that one of the songs in this was the Herman's Hermit song, I'm Henry VIII, but I am the king as I am. I thought that was the song in this for whatever reason. I was singing and I was like, we're going to watch King and I. It's got that one song, I am the king as I am. And one of my friend was like, that is not a song from the musical.
No.
I was disappointed to learn this. I was very disappointed.
You got through the whole movie. Then you were like, wait a second.
Why didn't that tiger start singing that song that I know?
In a Cockney accent.
Right. So what are we doing on the next episode, Mike?
Well, before I even say that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Abby Stabby for our artwork, as well as the Great Octopus for our theme music. On our next episode, we are going to come back next month and we're going to look at the mad comedians, which thankfully is only a half an hour long. We deserve a little bit of a break after this episode. So yes,
I saw this movie 3 times, guys. Yeah, I could take a break.
Mike, are you talking about Rodgers and Hammerstein's mad comedians?
No, I'm talking about Rankin and Bass's mad comedians from the sacred year of 1970. No Rodgers and Hammerstein in the next one.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Maybe that song will be in this one.
Mad world.
What is the mad comedians, Mike?
I'm not exactly sure yet, other than it's probably a whole collection of current day comedians, all animated. I'm pretty sure there's Tommy Smothers and Dick Smothers in there. I want to say there might have been a little controversy about the Marx Brothers around this, but we'll be sure to share the whole thing next month when we come back and talk about it.
I'm excited.
So until then, Chris, what is keeping you busy, sir?
Everything over at Weirding Way Media. That's what's keeping me busy, where you can hear me, you can hear yourself, you can hear Richard, you can hear Richard's better half over at 80s TV
she's
Ladies.
Recording right now.
My God.
Wow.
Burning the midnight oil over there.
This household, I'm telling you, 2 podcasts, no waiting.
I was just saying, and Richard, how about yourself? What are you working on?
Well, we have concluded production on Titans. Season 4, the part 1 is now available along with seasons 1, 2, and 3 on HBO Max. The final 6 episodes will air, I believe, starting in April on HBO Max. So check those out. It's a nice 4-season show. It comes full circle, and you will not be left hanging. There are some shows it's disappointing they end, and you're like, oh, I went down a road and the road just petered out in the middle of the desert and I'm stuck. This one doesn't. It actually it concludes in what I think is a pretty great way. So check it out.
Very nice. Do we actually get to see Nightwing fuck Batman after he brought that up in the first episode?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't cash every check that we write.
All right.
Some of them bounce.
It was just kind of
yeah.
hanging out there for all these years. I thought for sure maybe we would get that.
I think it was more colloquial, but hey, you know what, that's what slash fiction's for.
Jesus.
Yeah, as for me, I am over writing a lot of slash fiction about Nightwing and Batman, about Bones and Kirk, and Bones and Spock, and Kirk and Spock. So it's always the classics. That
No Chekhov and Spock? What the hell, man?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a little hard to do a Russian when you don't have the big boobs. So.
That's fair. But I always wanted Spock to call Chekhov Chiku.
Whatever floats your boat, Chris. So be sure to come back next month to hear us talk about the mad comedians. Until then, be sure to rate and review the podcast wherever you get it. Tell your friends, tell your family, and stay weird.